In crop nutrition, the plant needs 17 mineral elements. 17 mineral elements. How many do you supply your crop? How many do you give your crop?
Truvets Techno Systems, your trusted agrochemical company. Reach us on 0733 598 788 or 0740 333 337. Or you can send us an email on info@truvets.co.ke.
My name is Paul Kamote, an expert in agriculture, crop protection and plant pathology. Today we want to talk about crop nutrition. And crop nutrition is wide, very wide. And why it's wide? Because there are so many elements or nutrients that the plant needs for optimal growth. I'll be very brief and in a very summarized way to talk briefly in a more practical way so that you can try it in your farm. In crop nutrition, the plant needs 17 mineral elements. 17 mineral elements. How many do you supply your crop? How many do you give your crop? Let's talk of a standard operations. Sawa mashamba. The standard operations means tukipanda, mnajua ile fertilizer tunaweka. DAP, diammonium phosphate. Iko na little nitrogen, but you supply phosphate. Umebakisha ngapi? 15. Then crop ikigrow kidogo, you apply CN, calcium ammonium nitrate. That means you give 2 more elements, calcium and nitrate. Remember nitrate tulipeana. So far, kwa hizo fertilizer mbili, umesupply only 3 elements to your crop. But the crop needs 17 of them. Tukitoka hapo, ndio watu wanakujaga kwa the other episode tuliongea maneno ya foliar. I don't talk about foliar. I don't believe in foliar personally. Professionally, I don't. I believe in liquefiers. They are better. They give more minerals. And that's, as an expert, that's what I believe in. So, you either give the liquefiers to supplement all the other remaining 15 elements for your plant to have optimal growth. But hiyo nimeongea the standards. Having said that, this element, there are other elements that God gives us freely. They are not mineral elements, but they are elements necessary. We have oxygen, we have carbon, and we have hydrogen that we get from water. So that leaves us, that make 5. So we are left with 12 elements to give plant that we must supply. Majority of them are required in big quantity, and the others are required in a moderate quantity, and the others are required in a minute quantities. And sometimes our soil have those elements, but it's very difficult to know what they have. In fertilizer nutrition, we categorize nutrient into 3. We have the major element, ndio tunaitaga NPK, na tuko na secondary element, zile hazitakagi, they are not needed in a big volume and neither are needed in small volume. They are moderate in requirement. Those are calcium, magnesium and sulfur. And then we have the trace element or the micro element that are required in a very small amount. But hold your thought. Among the 3, which one is more important? The major element, the secondary element, or the micro element? Both are important. But for production purposes, the micro elements are the king. Those small elements that are required in small quantities, it's what deny you your produce. The same, tukikula chakula, you have your carbohydrates, hiyo ni akina your ugali rice, to fill up your stomach. But you're told, okay, but you need to take some vegetables for the source of minerals and others. So you look at that as a secondary element. But we now go to the fruits, where what we eat it, we are told where kula matunda hapa. So providing you with the vitamins and the minerals. Angalia hizo kama microelement. Ukijiangalia, the way we feed also as a human, we need both macro food, that is the major food, ugali, rice. We need vegetables for vitamins and minerals. Na tumependa matunda for the supplementation of vitamins and other necessary. The same plant need the three. So which one is more important? All of them are important, but some are critically important for what the produce that you need. Once you are supplying this nutrient, it is very difficult in terms of formulation. It is very difficult to mix all these in one bottle. Why? The mixing, it is more scientific than anything else. It is not a question of taking this element and mixing or dissolving them. Leave it to the Fourier people. That's what is done. But element in our chemistry, we know some of them cannot mix. They repel each other. They fight. Some of them, you mix them together, they produce fire. Others, they freeze even the water when they mix. Then they react in the water. So we have all those chemical reactions that happen when you mix those pure elements in water or in a media that you are using. And that is why they are limited in what you can put in which bottle, which element you can mix. Otherwise, they can become unavailable even inside the bottle. So this element scientifically have to be given one. Consideration number one is, can this element be mixed together? Consideration number two, when do plant need this element? So you don't supply them too early or too late in plant processes. As an example, I'll take you through a simple plant element required at different stages. In the beginning, when you plant, your main concern should be the roots, the rooting system of the plant. The major element for that you require to consider is the phosphate. But it cannot work alone. The good thing why I said I don't consider foliar, I consider liquofats, is because liquofats will be able to add an extra element or more element at high concentration. If you have liquofats and you are giving phosphate, you can add iron, for example, which is a microelement. You can add nitrogen too into it, because iron will be very critical in helping on the absorption and the complementing the phosphate uptake. At that particular time, you need a fertilizer which has high phosphate for root production. Now, remember I told you, sometimes you put your fertilizer that has phosphate together with your seed, but the plant eats through the roots. By that time you are putting the seed, the roots are not developed. So a bigger portion of fertilizer is wasted because the plant is not ready to take those fertilizers. So that is where the liquid fertilizer, the liquofat, come in handy, because you can wait. The plant, after germination, you can apply it. They become more flexible. You can apply it when the roots are ready to absorb the nutrients. So at that particular time, you apply a liquofat that high in phosphate. I'll be mentioning a few examples because we only have one liquofat brand in this country. So that is the only example I can give. So kindly excuse me for that. The liquefied fertilizer we have are all called all greens. So the logo is all green. So there's no other example I can give. And the first, for root development, you need all green called planter P. That's a liquefied called planter P. So that one you apply and you are sure you can produce a lot of roots and fibrous root. And the root will now start taking up the nutrient and all that. Step number 2, after the crop have come out of from the soil and you are producing the root, the first thing, the thing you should consider once come out from the soil is the leaves. Produce as many leaves as possible, because that is the kitchen, that is where the food is cooked. And the leaf have 2 functions. One function is the kitchen, to cook the food for the whole plant. That is where photosynthesis happens. The importance number 2 of the leaf is the storage. Once you pick up the food, you store for the children that will be born. That is the produce that will come. So for those 2 purposes, produce as many leaves, or make your plant produce as many leaves as possible. For that production of leaf, people call it vegetative, but vegetative have 2 segments. There is a branch and there is leaf. So again, before you even come to top dressing, because that is where, please produce the leaves early enough. You can imagine you wait until the crop like maize reach up to knee high for you to do top dressing. But what is happening to your leaves? You are missing leaf production at that level. You are missing branching. You are missing the branches. You are missing what do we call this for wheat? We call it tillers. You are missing the tillers, which are very critical. So to produce this, you need a plant, a liquefied with high nitrogen. And not only high nitrogen, because the crop is young, you need to add a bit of humic acid. Yes, into it. You need to add a bit of P into it. And you need to add a P meaning phosphate and K potassium. And for that product, we have is a liquefied, again, all green, called high nitro. So you see how you are changing these fertilizers. It's like it's not a situation where one bottle fits all or will give all. It has to be scientifically formulated and separated. So you have a liquefied called all green. After you have produced a lot of leaf and branches, your next walling is actually flowers. Because now, if yours is it's flowering, and people think potato do not flower, they do flowers. And the flower are indicator that we are starting to produce the tubers. So let us produce. If we are rooting at tuber crops, at that particular vegetable, it has started putting the tubers, and you need big tubers, and you need flowers. So for these flowers to produce, you have to initiate the flower bud. Remember, at that flower production, 2 elements are very critical. There is a zinc and there is boron. The people ask, do you put them separately? I say no, because immediately the flower is formed, what is formed inside the flower is the fruit. The boron that you put help in fertilization and preventing flower abortion. It's a big topic I can discuss about how boron affect fertilization, but in general, accept me to be general. It help in preventing flower abortion, initiation of flowers, and the fertilization of flowers. The zinc that you are going to supply, when the seed is formed, it is being formed for it to propagate, to grow at maturity. And one element must be inside the seed is the zinc, because it will help in auxin production, that will help in germination. Another topic that we can discuss. So at what level do you need zinc? You need at fruit formation or seed formation. So can you separate these 2 elements? Of course not. they need to be scientifically balanced. They can be put in one bottle of a liquefied. And this liquefied, another example is all green benzene. Not it's your own the liquefied, you can have the benzene. So you can spray at a vegetative to prepare your plant for a lot of flower production, prevention of flower abortion, and fruit seed formation. If what would happen if you miss zinc in your at that stage, the fruit will not be formed. We will have berries dropping like in coffee when they are very young. You will have the fruits when they are very young dropping or shriveling or drying up, because the plant cannot produce seed that cannot germinate. It will produce seed that it is sure it will germinate. And one of the elements it consider is zinc. And it is the hardest element for the plant to absorb from the soil. That is why liquefied comes in handy. Let's assume now you have put flowers and your flowers are good, the fruit have formed. Now what next? At that particular time, different fruit behave differently. Let's take of watermelon, tomatoes, tree tomatoes, and they have one element they require. They suffer from one condition called blossom head rot. That is the rotting of the fruit from the tip. The biggest cause of this is lack of calcium and calcium. So we need at this particular level to supply calcium so that we don't suffer or get the blossom head rot. Now we need to supply calcium at that particular level. But calcium have one problem. Absorption of calcium is tricky. It is never absorbed, it is uptaken. It's taken like a chain and it is pushed up the plant with the water. That's the element that has a problem in uptake. So if your soil dry, the calcium is never taken up. If you have inconsistent water supply, the calcium chain of uptake is broken. So you still have calcium deficiency. And now, the calcium, scientifically you can use magnesium and boron to change the plant at the system at the enhance or induce calcium uptake rapidly. Once you put element, they must be in a certain ratio, scientific ratio. It's not just adding magnesium or boron. At this particular time, boron is not for flowering. You put very little. It is used as a transporter. In a transport sugars from where they are produced into the growing part, and they in the process create room for more uptake, and in the process the calcium is uptaken. Magnesium balances the uptake of calcium so that there is a continuous stream by increasing the photosynthesis in the leaves. The magnesium makes sure there is a continuous uptake of the calcium. So this element again is scientific. They must be in a very specific ratio. Liquefied are able to do that. And all green magical is that liquefied that is balanced for that purpose. Once you have, those are the fruits that you suffer from blossom head rot. If your fruit or crop does not suffer from that, you can skip application of all green magical. After you have produced your fruit, the next thing you should be worried about is the market. Remember, the market is how attractiveness your product is how sweet your product is how big or shapely your product is that you attract the customer's eye. So that at that level, you need to think about the market you are taking your crop. If you are thinking of the crop that need weight, you have to think on how you can increase the weight of your belly for coffee people, for example. For maize people that they sell per kilo, you have to consider that. For the one that sell by the color, the freshness, the turgidity, the longevity in the market, this is when we address that issue. And they address by the elements. And potassium is one of the elements we consider highly at that particular level. And now trace element. And that particular time when you have reached the market, you have to consider a liquefat again that has high in potassium, high in molybdenum, high in manganese, and that product is Super K or green Super K. It's a liquefat again. So that is balanced for that purposes. And that is the people who are going straight to the market because there is freshness of the vegetable or fresh. But I'll take you back a little bit when you are going to produce bellies now, because at that particular time you are producing so much. You are putting grain, there are people who are looking for fresh vegetable, there are people who are looking for ripening fruits, but there are also people who are looking for big size of fruits. At that particular time, when the plant produces a lot of fruits, some plants also suffer from what we call dieback. Dieback is like a plant committing suicide for producing too much, and they die from the tea. And why they do that, two things will happen. The leaves that you have all the nutrients will start yellowing because they have siphoned all the nutrients. Again, it will start killing itself just to provide the nutrient to the children. That is the berries or the fruits. And you have your dieback. And the plant can die at that particular level, just trying to save a child. And that child is your seed, is your fruit. The plant can sacrifice itself until one seed can survive. To avoid that, why is that? Because the root system is absorbing less than the requirement for the many berries, for many potatoes you have produced, for many leaves you have produced. The plant is absorbing less than the requirement. The demand outstrips the supply. At that particular time, all elements are needed to safeguard this plant. So at that vegetative place, when it has started to produce, it has finished to produce the flower, you come up with another liquefat that can provide all the major elements. Remember, we talked about the major, secondary, and trace element. That is what you need. And you need a liquefat, again, that can supply all the nutrients that are required for rapid expansion, main production, because the crop has changed its status from a simple feeder to a heavy feeder. And the liquefat that I can recommend is All Green Super Sense Macro and Micro Mix. It's called that All Green Super Sense Macro and Micro Mix is what you need for that expansion, you need for that rapid growth, you need for that heavy feeding to supply all the nutrients so that you prevent the plant from killing itself to make the seed survive. And after you have saved all your seed, now you are ready for the market. And that market, going back to it, the keeping quality is the key. Again, if you have used liquefat or green Super K, you will have a crop in the market that is fresh for a very long time. That is nutrition in a very nutshell. Let's join the next episode when we learn about the interaction. We can learn specific crop of importance to us, and we can demonstrate physically what we mean. Thank you so much for today.
Truvets Techno Systems, your trusted agrochemical company. Reach us on 0733 598 788 or 0740 333 337. Or you can send us an email on info@truvets.co.ke.